Good morning, everyone. I'm Glenna Milberg. There is always a South Florida connection, and this week that goes for the news that riveted attention from Lewiston, Maine to Gaza City, with Israel's intensive ground operation underway to eliminate the Hamas terror organization. South Floridians with ties to the people and the land there grapple with casualties and also grapple with decades-long emotional debates. This same week, we are nationally grappling with another mass murder, the sudden catastrophic fallout, 18 people gone because of a man with mental issues and a weapon of war. And so we begin today with someone who is in the midst of both of those issues, Congressman Jared Moskowitz of South Florida. Great to have you with us, Congressman, this morning. I know we were having a little bit of a technical difficulty. Taking a deep breath and ready to chat.
Hi, Glenna. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm great, thanks. I'm glad I can hear you well. So I want to start out with what I guess is a little bit of breaking news. The war in Israel really has an uptick in anti-Semitic incidents as one of the fallouts locally. And your congregation at your own synagogue, just in the last couple of hours overnight, has experienced exactly that. What can you tell us about that? Weigh in on that for us for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Glenna, one of the things that has been most disturbing about what's going on in the Middle East in a foreign policy issue in a war between Hamas and Israel is that it has turned to Jewish hatred around the world, but very much so in this country. It has reminded, quite frankly, the Jewish community why Israel was created, and has reminded the Jewish community why appeasement can never be something that is considered. Everyone in the streets that is marching, that's holding signs that say gas the Jews, kill the Jews, bring Hitler back, Hitler was right, all over social media and all in the streets are reminding the Jewish community that this is not about a ceasefire or humanitarian aid. It is exactly about what Hamas tried to do, which is to end Jewish people, is what they're committed to, and it's what we saw in the atrocities. What happened at my congregation, just 2 miles from where I live, is a bunch of kids in ski masks going up to the congregation saying "Kill the Jews," something they probably saw on TikTok because it's a cool thing to want to have mass genocide of an entire religion, which is something obviously the Jewish community has heard before, which is why it's so concerning.
Yeah. In Congress, the support for Israel is not 100% universal, but almost universal, bipartisan, bicameral. And yet we are watching in the Biden administration as well, or watching as the air offensive continues and the images of what the Gazan civilians are enduring there. You hear the narrative nationwide begin to erode in that support. I know you and your colleagues are working on resolutions in support. What more can Congress do to set the narrative?
Well, look, Congress can pass the aid package that President Biden has requested so that there can be both support for Israel and in their campaign to eliminate Hamas and humanitarian aid to the innocent Palestinians in Gaza. I support both of those things. I support Israel being able to eliminate Hamas, and I support humanitarian aid for the Palestinians in Gaza. And I think not only can you do both, I think you must do both. I think that's tremendously important. As far as the narrative, of what's going on in the war, I mean, this was predictable. I said it was going to happen. Many other people said it would happen in the first couple of days because Hamas committed, just unbelievable atrocities for the world to see. But once that event was over and we transitioned to Israel's response, the images of what happened in Israel are off the television screen, right? And now it's only the images of what's happening in Gaza. And so just like anything else in the media narrative, we can only focus on what is being beamed into our brains. And we forget just days or weeks ago of what happened. What Hamas did is why we're seeing in Gaza. Hamas is responsible for what happens in Gaza at the moment. It's there. That's why Israel is there. That being said, that doesn't mean Israel doesn't have responsibility to limit civilian casualties, which is what they're doing as much as you can in an active war. And so, look, it is a horrible situation. There is no doubt that Hamas has taken the entire Gaza Strip hostage, in addition to the hostages that they're holding underneath the ground. Americans, kids, babies, elderly.
In the tunnels.
In the tunnels. I mean, it's a horrible situation. No one should be celebrating war, and no one should be cheering Israel's response. It is unfortunately a necessary response because Hamas has proven that they can no longer live side by side with Israel.
Congressman, I want to talk a little bit about the other huge news nationwide that we're talking about that you have really such ties to as we approach in Lewiston, Maine, 600 mass shootings this year. You, of course, an alum of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High, and since then, hundreds of mass shootings, even since that upheaval in our own community gave us a firsthand look at what being victims of mass shootings look like. The Maine shooting victims now up on our screen. You have a colleague, Jared Golden, from Maine, who is a staunch gun rights advocate who now has sort of done an about-face and very publicly said he would like to see assault rifles banned. You in the State House, right after Marjory Stoneman Douglas massacre, really pushed through in a bipartisan way some unprecedented gun law in this state. Do you foresee this Maine mass shooting doing the same nationally at all?
Well, listen, I'm someone who, as you know, Glenna, went through what Jared is going through in Maine. He, has visited the crime scenes. I mean, I went to my high school where 17 people went to school that day and didn't come home. I then went to the reunification center, which I'm sure he's doing, where they kept the families of, the parents of the kids they couldn't reach on their cell phones, and hoping to hear something, hoping they were in a hospital somewhere, but not in the building. And then I watched as law enforcement and the FBI came in and notified family one by one, what had happened to their kid, where they were in the building, or their spouse, because we lost teachers that day as well. I didn't hear crying. I heard screaming. It still haunts me to this day. And then I attended funeral after funeral. I was driving past funerals to go to other funerals, 17 funerals going on almost simultaneously. Then the makeshift memorials that were built, and the mental health impact that it has, not just on the families, but on loved ones, on friends, on folks that were there to witness it, and on the community. And so you cannot, and I say this all the time, and it's how I really believe we passed the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Bill. You cannot witness one of these things and come out the same person, right? You're just different.
So do you see this? Do you foresee this being the catalyst for what? Some kind of change nationally, support for universal background checks?
Oh, look, I don't know, Glenna. Washington is so broken. Okay, we can barely, agree that the House should have a speaker. Okay, so I mean, everyone has seen the dysfunction of the last 9 months, 10 months in Congress, and the last couple of weeks. I mean, there's questions whether we can handle big, complicated issues like this. Look, it was very clear in Florida how to handle it, right? There was lots of stuff I wanted that I wasn't going to get, and there was lots of stuff my Republican colleagues across the aisle didn't want to do that I had to get them comfortable with. We raised the age to 21. We did red flags here, 3-day waiting periods, hundreds of millions of dollars for mental health, school resource officers, so that there would be more protection for students in the schools. And so there's a lot we can do. We can do school safety. We can do mental health policy. I really think red flag laws is something that we should be doing at a national level. I'm for an assault weapons ban, but the votes don't exist for that right now.
Yeah.
And so can we all agree that mentally ill people shouldn't have weapons? If we cannot agree that mentally ill people should not have weapons, then no, Glenna, nothing ever is going to happen. I mean, if someone is literally in a mental institution, like this gentleman was, And then he could go out and buy a gun and unlimited ammunition and body armor if he wanted. If we can't agree that maybe, perhaps, he shouldn't be able to go get a weapon of war because he's shown, I don't know, that he's hearing voices in his head. Maybe that's where we should draw the line and say that's probably a law that might mitigate the situation. Of course, we're not going to stop all mass shootings. I'm tired of that argument. Oh, laws don't stop. It's not going to stop all this, but we can mitigate it. And every life that we save is still a life that we saved. We passed that law here, Glenna. It was bipartisan. Republicans led on it. Not a single Republican lost their election over that law. And there are no chanting in the streets, no protests that their Second Amendment rights are being abridged. We have a Second Amendment in this country. We have to respect that. But we also have to be reasonable.
Yes, and we look forward to seeing that kind of passion on the floor of Congress. We know we will. Jared Moskowitz, great to see you. Great to have you here this morning, and we will absolutely continue this very soon.
Thanks, Glenna.